Welcome to Ancient Geeks, a podcast from a couple of geeks of a certain age. From our youth to present day, we look at the development of fantasy and science fiction culture. We were geeks before it was chic. I am your co-host, Stephen Taylor, and I seek not sea power nor air power, but podcast power.
Power. I'm Tom Grant, and I'm the voice from the other world.
So today on Ancient Geeks, Dune-A-Palooza concludes with a look at Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel with his 2001 and 2024 movies, Dune Part 1 and Part 2. So, Tom, how are you today?
I am doing fine. I am not recovering from COVID.
Somebody might be, and
Somebody might be.
Somebody
Yeah.
might be. So, what's up with you with geekery this week?
What's up with this guy? So I have been doing some comic reading. Some Humble Bundle purchases I made. I was catching up on Conan and Red Sonja, some recent titles from comic publishers, which were pretty good, I would say. I think the Conan story was very prosaic. The Red Sonja story was, I think, better than expected. It started out with a sort of a snarky tone to it, but it while it kept it, it still was readable and a little bit fun. I also got from the library. Was wandering over to the library the other day.
What's
and
that?
Saw that. Yeah, what is that thing? They had the first two volumes of Resident Alien Omnibus collections. So the Dark Horse comic on which the TV show was based. And I won't give a long review because we got to get to Dune, but I'll just say, I think this is one of the rare occasions that, as good as the Resident Alien comics are, which they're really good and definitely worth reading, I think the show improves on it. So it's an adaptation better than the source material, which is
fantastic.
not commonplace.
No, it is not. So I have my geekery is visual, which is bad for a podcast, but here it is.
Okay. Oh, my goodness.
I finally constructed the U-wing model that you gave me for my birthday, which was quite a while ago in Lego. And I will actually, I've got something to say about it. I'll put on the Substack maybe by the time this is posted. But thank you for that. I really enjoyed it. It was it's the first time I've built, except for playing with my kids, the first time I've done a Lego model on purpose in a long time, and it was incredibly enjoyable. So that was awesome.
Oh, great!
And
I'm so glad.
Very cool. Yeah. So good stuff. That was my geekery. That was plenty of geekery. And also just being comatose with COVID after that. But anyway, that's another problem. Anyway, having said that, so let's talk about stuff here. And in fact, the next thing we talk about on this podcast, because we have a formula, is soundtrack. So if we could pick a soundtrack for this episode, what would you pick?
Well, after extensive research in the 5 minutes before this episode, I would choose a really good song, Dune Buggy, by the Presidents of the United States of America.
Well, sure.
Which has double meaning for us, but anyway.
It does. So I was a more pedestrian, and I decided just to pick something from the Hans Zimmer score from the films. So I like The Dream of Arrakis from the first movie, or A Time of Quiet Between the Storms in the second film. So actually, it's a pretty good soundtrack, actually. But anyway, I realized that, kind of like you, like 3 Dune songs in a row, it's a bit much to ask of a person.
Yeah.
Anyway, but as stated, so we are talking about Dune Part 1 and Part 2 from 2021, 2024. The latest adaptation of the Frank Herbert novels, and this is we're going to do like we did last week. We're going to talk about this both as a film and as an adaptation. Before we dive into all that, how did you first encounter these films, Tom?
So I didn't see it in the theater because of COVID.
Yes.
So I watched it on a big screen. I did not watch it on my iPad or my phone shutter.
On your watch.
On my belly button. So I saw that I saw part 1 in not in the theater. And then part 2, I also did not see in the theater. Although I really enjoyed the first part, it just wasn't one of those things that I could get another person to go with me to go see. So, I just waited until it was streaming and I watched it. And then both of us rewatched recently for this podcast. So I also obviously did not watch it in the theater for those two viewings.
There's probably a long discourse to be had about theaters and one's relationship with them. I did not see this in the theater either. I saw the first part because COVID, and I remember it came pretty quickly to HBO as a result, as I recall
Right.
properly. I meant to
Yeah.
look that up, but I didn't. But I watched it. I remember watching it at the time. I enjoyed it. And then I didn't watch the second part until preparing for this podcast. So it was on my sort of list of things to do, and this became the reason to do it. I will say I watched it. So I paid for. I re-upped my HBO Max subscription, and one of the options was the slightly elevated version, which gives you Atmos sound and
Hmm.
UHD. And I have to admit, the sound quality was impressive. Now I have a nice surround sound system, and as my
Right.
wife was downstairs cooking, it was rattling the house in a pretty impressive kind of way.
Oh, cool.
Oops, it was. I enjoyed it. So and it was well presented on that screen. I was more than happy. I don't know. I mean, not to take this digression right now. I don't really need to go to the theater, to be totally honest. I don't have any like compelling desire to go to the theater, to be honest. Now we went, for Superman and Fantastic Four, but it was because of the podcast and timing. If I could have watched those
Right.
movies at home, I would have been more than happy to do so.
Yeah.
But
And I would say I would definitely appreciate better quality sound, better
sure,
quality video by seeing
sure,
it in a theater.
sure.
But, as I said when we did the Superman episode, I've had this aha about me about IMAX. Like
Hmm.
I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much in IMAX as just watching it on the screen.
Right,
I don't know if it came out in IMAX, but I think it would have been a better experience seeing it in the theater, but not necessarily the super mega theater
right.
experience of IMAX.
Oh, I think that watching a movie in the theater is a qualitatively better experience. I just don't know that the relative expense, and I don't mean the little expense, but the time, the effort, energy is worth it to me. And when I can just walk upstairs and watch the movie.
Well, let's talk about it in a future
Yeah, we
episode
will.
because
Well,
I think
yeah,
that'll be an interesting discussion. I think the one benefit I would have had of seeing it in the theater I haven't listed yet was just not getting distracted. That's
right,
one of the great things about seeing a movie nowadays in the theater is that we don't have notifications popping up. We don't
right.
have people calling you. You're focused on the movie. And I would say these are movies that are worth focusing on.
Yes, no, I totally agree. So okay, having done all that,
Yes.
let's talk about this as a film. So as we did last time with David Lynch's movie, where we were not very kind,
Yes.
or maybe we were just honest. What grade would you give this movie as a movie?
I would give it a
And
B.
we're gonna like we're gonna just I should say just treat this as one big movie in two parts, right?
Right. Do I have to provide an explanation for my grade, or can I be an imperious professor and just put the grade on there and
How much of a
see
jerk?
me in my office?
How much of a jerk do you want to be?
I never want to be a jerk, so I would give it a B overall.
Okay.
I think there was a lot of excellent elements in the
Hmm.
movie. I think that it's interesting rewatching it. I liked it better on this current rewatch than I did when I
Hmm.
first saw it. But we'll talk about this, I'm sure, more later. But there was a particular flatness to it that also,
At times.
at times, and I thought that the second movie sagged a little bit in the middle. Uh, but otherwise, it was great. And I also was trying to be careful not to, have my judgment clouded by the David Lynch Dune movie. It's like, well, at least it's better than this. It's not, it shouldn't be a free pass for a movie. You shouldn't, praise it to the rafters just by, not failing as spectacularly as the David Lynch movie did. Um, and we'll get into the ins and outs of the different things that go into that score, but I would give it a B.
Although, I will point out that when you're grading a stack of essays and you
Yes.
read a really terrible one and then you read a
Yeah.
pretty good one, you may be a little more generous on that good one because thank God it's not the one I just read.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. I think while my students would probably not consider me an easy grader, I think I'm an easier grader on media than you are. I think I would give it an A minus B plus. I thought it was.
Okay.
I now and I think but I'll admit and I'm not even trying to separate. I think that probably the Lynch experience influences that grade to a degree, and I think to a degree, it's impossible for me to fully separate out the adaptation part. And I think so. I think part of it's my affection for the source material,
Right.
and not to get too ahead of ourselves. I think it does a pretty good job of being a good adaptation, but we'll get to that grade later. So I think that probably influences my thought process a little bit. I mean, so I don't know, but we can kind of go down the list. I mean, and kind of the same things we like. What do you think about the acting in this film?
I thought it was a mix with the balance pretty strongly on the side of good performances.
Hmm.
So I would say I really would call out. I think most of the time, Timothy or Timotei or
Timoteo. No.
Timoteo Shamalama Ding Dong Chalamet
Yes.
did a really good job. There were
Yes.
other times, and so he had to carry the movie
You did. Yeah.
basically, and he did. So I would say I would call him out. I thought Javier Bardem was terrific.
Yes.
I
Yes.
as this person kind of from a particular sect of the Fremen waiting for signs of the Messiah to come. I
Yes.
thought he did a really great job of that. Stellan Skarsgård I thought was good as Baron Harkonnen. Charlotte Rampling, what little we saw of her face behind that veil, was good as the Reverend Mother. Oscar Isaac was, I think, a very charismatic Duke Leto.
Hmm.
Jason Momoa, who usually annoys me because he
Yes.
plays the same bro personality all the
Yeah. Yeah.
time,
Sure.
I thought was unusually good for himself in this movie. And
I
maybe
thought it
it's
was very good.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, that bro quality to it was more subdued, which I will credit the director for.
Sure.
I would imagine would be the fair thing to do. And it just fit the role well too, as somebody who was, a friend, but also sort of, mentor figure for Paul.
You're not a big fan of Aquaman?
No.
Sorry.
No,
I mean,
I didn't see the second movie.
I didn't
I
either. No, my problem with Jason Momoa has often been he got so associated in my mind with Aquaman that it just really kind of is a bad taste. But yeah, I thought he was quite good in this movie. I
Yeah,
thought Rebecca Ferguson was good as Lady Jessica.
I didn't like her as much. She had a tendency to kind of just say everything portentously.
Mm, I can
I
see that.
would never abandon my son. Anyway, I like her as an actress most of the time,
Hmm.
but there's always like a little bit of feeling like she's overplaying things
Hmm.
or anyway. I'm waiting to
I
see
can see
Doctor
that. I
Doctor
can see that.
Sleep because she's going to play a different sort of character in that, which I haven't seen the movie yet. But like in the Mission Impossible movies, other things I've seen her in, and it's not. It's again, it's not saying she's bad. I just said
Hmm.
she was okay
Right. I
in
mean,
the role.
I will admit, and as I think about this and being totally honest, it's almost impossible for me not to have the David Lynch thing in my head. And
Yes.
maybe, I mean, I think about none of these characters, with maybe one exception, do I feel like they all seem so much better than that movie that it's just, the
Well,
only, you want to guess the only one that I might actually two, there's two actors that I in some ways preferred in the Lynch movie to this movie. And then not to put you on the
uh,
spot, but
I would say, how about you didn't love Christopher Walken?
actually I thought Clifford Walken was fine. I liked it better than Jose Ferrer,
Okay.
but
Uh, it's hard to compare the Chawneys because
yeah,
Sean Young really didn't get a chance to
didn't
play
exist.
much of a role. So
Yeah, I have some gripes about Zendaya's performance, but I'm not sure how much of it's her fault and how much of it's the script.
yeah,
I actually in some ways like Sting better than the guy that played Fade. I'm
that
forgetting
was
who he.
I was coming to Sting. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I short
No, no,
circuited.
no, no, no. I don't feel robbed of the chance to guess. That's fine.
And the guy that played Piter, I mean I prefer Brad Dourif, although again it's a bizarre performance. In some ways, well, I'm going to leave that for a second. But yeah, I mean, the entire House Atreides for me worked a whole lot better, and I thought was a pretty well cast. I thought Brolin did a good job. I
Yeah.
liked, I mean, Dr. Yui's kind of less of a character than in the book in some ways. That was a little disappointing, but that's an adaptation question. And the actor was fine. And I like the guy. I like Stephen McKinley Henderson who played through for Howard, although again the character is diminished in this movie as a.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I thought there were good scenes with Austin Butler as Fade, but he didn't do a spectacular job in the role.
Well, part of the problem, and I say I will get ahead because I think it's the only way to talk about it. I didn't like the way in which the Harkonnens all kind of looked alike,
Yes,
and it kind of made it occasionally a little mushy. I mean, I knew who was who, but I mean, it was just, I don't know. I didn't understand the visual choice that was made there.
right.
As if, I don't know, that almost like they're a separate race of or subspecies of humans at this point. Why are they all white and bald and pasty? I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't. Dave Bautista's performance was okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it seemed incomprehensible why he would have the role of administrator of Arrakis.
yes, I agree. I mean, having just seen him in, I'd written about on the Substack about Blade Runner 2049, and he has a very small part in that movie, but a much more impressive performance, in my opinion, than the one in this film. He just seems kind of just like a big. Well, I mean, I know that Raban's he's a beast, man. He's a terrible person, and he does that part just fine. But it just, I don't know, it was a little flat to
Well,
me.
if you're a degenerate and a sadist, that doesn't
Yes,
mean necessarily that you're stupid.
fair enough.
And here he was a little stupid,
Yeah.
as was I forgot the actor in the David Lynch one.
Oh, the David Lynch one, he was just a goofball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't remember
Didn't
his
he
name.
kind of laugh goofily too? Like,
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He did. Um, yeah, so Zendaya is Chani. So what did you think about her performance?
that long sigh probably tells you what
Yeah.
I thought. She's not a strong actress,
Mm-hmm.
and she's supposed to be playing a strong character,
Right.
and it just I know there are people out there who really dislike her, and I don't understand that. I
Right.
just thought that she wasn't the best person to be cast for this role. She had her moments.
Yeah.
I thought at the end of the second part where she storms off and
Right.
gets on the sandworm and goes, that was good. Her sense of
Mm-hmm.
being hurt got conveyed
Sure.
very well to the audience. But then there's just like a lot of other scenes. It's like the long exchanges between her and Paul, where I felt like this isn't the Chani from the book, and
Yeah.
I'm
Right. That's
jumping
fair.
ahead by comparing it to the Chani in the book.
Yeah.
But even like Desert Warrior, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get a strong sense that she credibly landed that particular
I think that's fair.
part.
I think that's
Yeah,
totally fair. Um, let's see.
I think that covers most of
Yeah, I think I will
all of
point
them.
out that I really enjoyed, and I'm gonna mess up his name, Babs, the guy that played Jameis, Dr. Mobenga. I
Yeah,
thought he did a really good job. I enjoyed his
yeah, he did.
performance.
And I was glad he was in the movie, not that the character was in the movie, and
Yes,
unlike the David Lynch one.
yes, agreed. So let's go back to the Emperor. Did you not like the Emperor?
No, I didn't. He just seemed tired. And again, like
Yeah, that's
this is
fair.
the Emperor, and
Yeah,
so why are you playing him as this
that's fair.
exhausted character?
That's totally
Whose
fair.
daughter is constantly saying, "Hey, Dad, what about this? Hey, Dad, why didn't you do that? Oh, what
Totally
about
fair.
her? What about Florence Pugh?
As Arlan,
Yeah, who got
Irulan.
more of a part than just an
Yeah,
exposition dump
I thought
at the beginning of the movie.
she was more intriguing, and I think I
Hmm.
look forward to seeing what they do with her in the third film.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and well, there's one character we really haven't mentioned, which is Oscar Isaac's beard. That's quite the beard, man. Anyway,
It's too bad his beard didn't escape into the desert. And it would have the signet ring then.
that's right. The ducal signet ring.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about the directing and cinematography of the film? I think you've already made one comment, but why don't we
Yeah,
explore it
I
a little
think
further?
that Villeneuve has a unfortunate habit of flattening things. And
Mm,
I don't know if you felt that way from your watch of Blade Runner 2049, but also Arrival had a little. Anyway, there's something both visually and the way that he gets the actors sometimes to deliver lines, and it's nowhere near the kind of the artificiality of
Hmm.
David Lynch's direction
Right.
and the other movie. But it's I don't know, and sometimes too the vistas were a little too vast.
Mm.
Everything seemed empty. Like here you have
Right.
these immensely wealthy and powerful people, and they have like a little keepsake of a bowl,
Right.
and that's the only decoration in their room. And
Right.
then
That's true.
they live in these spaces that are vast and echoing and
Hmm.
felt hollow. And I don't know if that was the intended vibe that he
Right.
wanted to give for the people who occupy these spaces. But anyway, it was just that part of it didn't work as well as other things that he did.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. The when I thought about the flattening, I didn't think about it necessarily the way you're describing, although I see what you're saying. I do think
And
before I get
drab,
to the
very drab. Sorry to interrupt
it
you.
is drab. The color
Yeah.
palette's drab. I don't know that it's I think that there was it's actually all the color palettes are subdued, even on Caladan, which is certainly more colorful than Arrakis. But every planet is pretty the color palette's pretty limited. That's true. In fact, at one point, there's one place it's basically black and white.
Yeah.
But I do think, or the impression that I got from the scenes in Arrakis was it was supposed to feel kind of empty and hollow and not homey. I think that part's on
Oh
purpose.
yeah, definitely. I was talking more
Uh,
about the human constructed
sure,
spaces.
sure, sure. No, yeah, and I do think some of that must have been filmed on the volume because occasionally it just looks not right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought Arrakis looked as good as Arrakis should, right?
Hmm.
You might have thrown in some other interesting desert rock formations, but otherwise I was pretty
Right.
happy with
Well,
it.
I mean, I was thinking about
Yeah.
Arcane itself and the buildings, and I didn't mind. I didn't
Yeah.
mind the emptiness of all that. It seemed
Yeah.
they just had just moved in. When you first move in, things are kind of empty, and
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
but I understand your point.
But where were the cardboard boxes then?
That's right. How about the production design on the film?
Beautiful. I mean, I would
Yeah.
say, other than the drab sets, I
Hmm.
would say the still suits look spectacular. They
Yes, they
looked
do.
functional and
Yes.
interesting and futuristic, without looking odd, too odd.
Hmm.
I thought for example, the harvesters were really interesting to look
Yes.
at.
Yes,
One of
they
the
were.
articles I read that I sent to you said that they like deliberately made the Harkonnen harvester look like a giant bloated tick.
Hmm.
That was really good. Uh, all the equipment that they had,
Yes.
it looked terrific.
The ornithopters were pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
The shields certainly look better. Again, not to make comparisons, but the Lynch movie looked ridiculous, and they look
right.
kind of cool in this film. Um, I think the costuming was well done.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Some of
the
this.
movie. Go ahead.
So it's also some of the special effects, like the miniguns on that were the Harkonnen
Hmm.
ornithopters, how they looked and sounded, the beam weapons. Anyway,
Hmm.
all that was really interesting. I enjoyed just the look and feel of everything.
Yeah, I mean, on balance, I mean, I was impressed with the way the movie looked. I
Yeah.
really, I like his style, and I enjoyed. Uh, And unlike again, I mean, because I said it in the previous podcast. I mean, one of the things that disappointed me about the previous movie was that the desert wasn't beautiful. The desert's beautiful and scary in
Oh
this
yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
so that's good. And then and then special effects, and we've already kind of covered that. I think they're good looking effects. The visual effects were very good in this movie. The model, the CGI stuff, it all looked good to me.
Oh, the sandworms.
Oh, the
Fantastic.
sandworms were great. Yeah, let's talk about the sandworms for a second. So, what did you think about the sandworms? Besides the fact that they were fantastic, but I mean, what struck you about them?
Well, they seemed like worms, I would say,
Hmm. Yeah.
and everything about them I thought was really well executed because they're so important for this story.
Yes, they are.
To make them terrifying.
Yes.
So like whenever the sand started to vibrate,
Yes.
that was a really great effect. At the end, the kind of the attack on Arrakeen when you saw like
Hmm.
multiple sandworms
Yes.
coming in, that was breathtaking, even on a non IMAX screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
On
just
your phone.
yeah. How about you? What did you think of them?
No, I thought they were spectacular. I mean, I loved the way the mouth worked and the way they would rise up out of the sand and all the sand would
Yeah.
go in. That was really a really nifty effect. I mean, only, and I don't even know that I should have like trying to go back and figure this out. And you can help me out here. Man, they're fast. Should they be that
Yes.
fast? Are they that fast in the book? Do you think? I
That's
don't
a
know.
really interesting question. The one question I always had was like, how deep does the sand go?
Right.
Which I know got addressed, but
Mm-hmm.
when I first saw the Lynch movie, I had this
Mm-hmm.
question. You're like, okay, and you have sand, you have
Mm-hmm.
compacted sand beneath it, you have rock somewhere below it. I mean, these things are gigantic, but they
Yes.
also like powerfully blow through the
Yes.
sand, and
Yeah.
that kind of links to your question about the speed. I don't know. I don't even know.
So like,
Did the book ever tell? I don't
I
remember about
don't
how they
know that it.
propelled themselves. I don't
No,
remember that.
no, I don't think there's any
Yeah.
discussion. At least not the first novel. If it comes up later, I don't remember, and I haven't revisited those books in forever. I mean, I look on the one hand, I thought, like for example, I thought it was just a combination of the visual effects and that particular iteration of it with the sandworm. I thought that Paul's writing the sandworm scene was thrilling.
Yes.
And my only question really, and I kind of like the idea they were like traveling on caravans on top of the sandworms to when they went south. That was pretty
Right.
cool. But my only question is how the hell do they get off of those things? I mean, I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I don't think they slow down at a depot so you can hop off. So I don't know. That was my only question about
I'm
that.
sure
That's
there.
like
I'm sure there's a
nitpicky,
Reddit thread about all of these,
probably.
all of these questions. So not only like you get off, but then you have to let the sandworm go.
Yes, yes.
So do you run for cover then? I mean,
I know it's
yeah,
it's pretty harrowing. I would think
yeah,
getting off would be more so than getting on.
yeah. Run for the
But no,
rocks.
but again, a major point of comparison with the previous movie, that was all not very exciting. When
Right. Well, because
anyway,
it looked so incredibly fake,
yes, it did. Yes, it did.
and again, it accentuated the fakeness. It wasn't
Mhm.
merely that, the budgets in that year were maybe not as big as they needed to be, or maybe the special effects technology, wasn't as good or
Sure.
whatever. No, they went out of their way to make them look fake.
Yeah, no, it was.
And including, as I said in the last episode, the scenes where they just kept like the whoever that had the hand in the puppet kept
Yeah.
waving them back and forth, and they kept cutting back to them needlessly.
Yes. Yes.
I,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Great. Any thoughts about the score?
It was good.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite Hans Zimmer score.
Fair.
It was sort of there. It didn't get in the way.
Right.
It wasn't blasting in your ears all the time.
I thought it
Not
was
like
appropriate. Is,
not like
is kind of the word.
Inception. Blah. Sorry, listeners, for that.
No, I thought it was appropriate. I thought it enhanced, but yeah, it didn't get in the way.
Yeah.
I noticed it on occasion, but it wasn't in your face.
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to soundtracks as much as you do, but I
Yeah.
used to listen to the Batman Begins soundtrack, which I
Hmm.
really liked. And this wasn't nearly as good, I thought.
Fair. So, anything else about the film as a film you want to talk about that I've forgotten to mention?
I really want to get into this as an adaptation,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Let's do that. So,
let's do that.
what's your adaptation grade?
As an adaptation, I would give it an A minus.
I would as well. That was the grade that it was in my mind, A minus. So we're in agreement there. Um, you want to talk about? You want to give any general thoughts about that? Or you just want to go straight into casting, or how do you want to? How would you like to discuss?
Well, I would say that in general, this is still a tough movie to, sorry, a tough book to adapt to a
Yes,
movie,
agreed.
even when you have two plus hours to work with, 2 times 2 plus hours.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's far more than 2+ hours, let me tell you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think that you need to stretch Dune out to a miniseries to do it
Right.
justice. I mean, even then, couldn't do everything that's in the
That's right.
book. You couldn't
Yeah.
recreate it. So I thought the choices of what to keep were great. I thought as I said, some of the pacing was a little
Sure.
off in the second movie, but in general, I think that everybody involved in putting together the script and editing it and making it into a movie that tells the story of Frank Herbert's Dune,
Yes.
did an excellent job.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, it is a difficult book to adapt. I think clearly certain choices had to be made. We'll talk a little bit about additions or deletions um, as we go through this. But yeah, I felt like, and maybe it's part again, that's why it influences my overall grade of the film. It does a really good job of adapting the novel, I think, even with its
Right.
changes.
And it's not, no movie is ever going to be the mental image you have of a book you love.
No,
Right. It's always going to be somebody else's mental image. And the question then is, well, how much do you either agree with the way that they've done it, or suffer some of the choices gladly
right.
because the rest of it is really good. And I there were some places where I certainly had thoughts in the second category that I like.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that particular way of representing something or that
Right.
particular edition, but I'm glad that it wasn't just like somebody trying to do a Xerox copy of the book onto the screen, the
Right.
way that, for example, Zack Snyder did with the Watchmen movie.
Right.
I mean, I'm glad that there are elements in there that are Villeneuve's
Hmm.
own stamp on things. That's great.
Sure. No, no.
Yeah,
So I know we talked about acting, so we've already kind of touched on some of these actors, but what was your general feeling about the casting as an
great.
adaptation? Yeah.
Great. I mean, I think again, Chalamet carries the movie, even though at times he seems a little reedy. I would say, just
Sure.
as I don't need a really muscular Paul, but he seemed really like a kid at times. And
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly older than the Paul in the book, but he's not. He still does look like a kid in a way that the previous movie did not
yeah,
produce.
right. And he's a really good actor.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I would say, I didn't know really how good he was until the movie he did about Bob Dylan,
Hmm.
A Complete Unknown. So he's really good. And I think, despite, I'm kind of picking on his physical type. I'm body shaming him in this podcast. Sorry. I I hope your millions will comfort you from my stinging comments about your physique, Timotei. But I think that his acting ability is really good, and you can see it here. I think like the scenes where he needs to kind of turn on a dime and become
Yes.
the
Yes.
leader. Like the scene where he's addressing the Fremen and he says, "I am the
Yes.
voice from the outer world." Those are really good, and I think that like a lot of coming of age sort of stories don't necessarily do a good job of showing that, and this did, and a lot of it certainly you can credit the director, but certainly Chalamet, that you
Oh no,
see
that
someone grow in a way that
that's a
is
great scene. I really enjoyed
yeah
the scene where he's
yeah
addressing the mass and he's not supposed to be up there and he starts telling people these truths and they're backing down and
yeah
it was really well done. Um,
yeah. And so Stellan Skarsgård, I thought he's also a really great actor.
yes, he is.
And I thought he did well as the Baron. I don't know that necessarily he did a great job in it, but I
Hmm.
also don't know if he had you know a lot of wiggle room
Hmm.
to do much with it. I mean, they had him floating around in the fat
Hmm.
suit, and they had him being a degenerate sadist, and
Hmm.
yes, that was very Harkonnen-like, but I don't know. I thought the best scene with him was actually the one where Fade is in the arena and he's up, in the stands, way up in
Hmm.
the stands, and
Right.
he's, happy birthday. I've made it possible for you to actually die in the arena. I thought that was one of the better scenes with him, but there was just a lot of, I don't know. He was completely hairless, but if he'd had, a mustache, he would have been twirling it, and it was okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was fine. I mean, again, it's I really would have loved to watch this movie. And I guess I did. I watched part one before I'd seen the Lynch film. So I didn't necessarily make comparisons to the Lynch film. I'd some because I knew some of the things. But having watched it, it becomes impossible not to think this is. Academy Award quality performances versus what I saw in the other movie. So that definitely
Right.
affects my assessment. I mean, some of it's he seems occasionally to be doing an impersonation of Marlon Brando from Apocalypse
Oh
Now.
yeah.
So there's that. But I mean, I found him to be repugnantly evil and interesting enough in that sense. And certainly the floating was much more ominous than it was in the previous film. Although I don't know that we needed, and I don't even think it's a necessarily. I mean, my understanding of my recollection, I should say, my recollection from the novel was that Harkonnen had this help because he was just so grossly fat he had to have
Right.
anti-grav devices, but that he wasn't literally floating around the room. So in some ways, this seems to be almost a response to the Lynch film more than is a response to the novel. That we're going to make this floaty thing more, more ominous
Yeah.
than it was. I'm not sure it was necessary for him to be
But
floating
I
around.
did like in the
Well, there's
scene
that one scene, yeah.
where he's cowering up at the top of
That was a good one too,
the
yeah.
room. That was
From the
great.
poisoning. And
Yeah.
even though when he first raises up, it is
Yeah.
ominous. I keep using that word because I can't think of another synonym at the moment. But anyway, he was really fine. And like I said, but again the Harkonnens in general because they're all these hairless cats. It was just kind of an odd visual for me.
Right. So I have a question.
Yeah.
So unexplained technology, which I
Mm.
like,
Sure.
in science fiction movies. You don't have to necessarily, kind of detail the function of everything
Right.
and the mechanics of how it works and so forth. So there's unexplained technology in Buckaroo Banzai, the watermelon that they comment on. Like, what's that
Hmm.
doing there? So, are the little spheres floating behind Baron Harkonnen an advancement in watermelon technology from Buckaroo Banzai?
It's entirely possible. The black melon theory. I don't know. uh, any other casting choices you want to comment on?
I think we've talked a lot about that. I thought
Yep.
Josh Brolin was good.
Yeah.
I thought the scenes where he and Paul were talking after they find each other in the desert,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
he's trying to not push him too hard into doing what he thinks that Gurney thinks he has to do.
Hmm.
Anyway, those were well played. I thought.
Yeah, I thought so. And I thought, yeah, he was a more interesting character than the previous film. So how about faithfulness to the source material? Well, what are things? So we can talk about additions or deletions. So what additions did you find either worked or didn't work for you?
The Black Sun was weird.
Hmm.
That seemed just like a visual choice.
Right.
Like, wouldn't it be cool if? Which is fine. But then I just kept wondering, what is a black sun? Like, there really isn't
Hmm.
such a thing as a black
Right.
sun. So, was this some sort of satellite in orbit that was
Right. Right.
kind of changing the lighting to monochromatic? Anyway, I didn't love that. I thought it was an interesting visual choice, but I could have easily done without it.
So two things that come to mind. Well, two additions or
Mm,
changes. One is more a story choice, which is we spend a lot more time on Kaladin than we do in the book.
yes,
Do you think that was? I mean, it's like half an hour. Do you
I
think it
know. I
necessary?
no, I would have trimmed that down.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I think there are a couple of scenes that are useful, but I
Right.
don't know we needed as much as we got. How about, and this is, I think, a major change, right? The whole notion that there's a fundamentalist sect of the Fremen and a less fundamentalist sect, and this whole thing with the South that's done in a somewhat different way than the novel, and which is partially creates Chani's uh, conflict. What
Yeah.
did you think about that?
I like that actually. I think that was a good reason to maybe have some of the scenes in the middle of the second movie that
Right.
where they might have trimmed things down. It set up some interesting conflicts there. I think Chani storming off, not just because of Paul, what she felt was Paul's betrayal to her, but
Hmm.
also how the people whom she believed were zealots. and
Right.
dangerous,
Right.
had become ascendant in among the Fremen. I thought that was actually pretty good. I'm
Yeah,
sensing
I'm
you didn't like it as much.
no, I liked it fine. It was just my only I think it mostly worked. I think it definitely worked with the Stilgar character. I think it worked with some of the scenes we're talking about. I it occasionally felt manufactured in some way to me.
Hmm.
And I think the stuff with Chani in particular, um, so like when she gets, I understand fully why she gets upset at the end of the film with the whole thing with the Emperor's daughter, but the book develops more clearly this concept of political marriage, right?
Right.
And I feel like we're supposed to understand that's what's going on, and it's mentioned in the movies
Right.
and somehow with the Jessica um, uh, Leto business. But I feel like it was more spelled out in the book, and that she would have understood what was going on in a way that was more. It just wouldn't necessarily resulted in that response. And I also
Yeah.
felt like there was she makes the promise, or she she wants him to go south. He doesn't want to go south because he thinks this is what's going to happen,
Right.
is what happens. And she says that, I'll love you. There's this caveat, but as long as you don't change or something along those lines. Don't As long as you are who you are or something along those lines. And as soon as this all happens, though, she gets all mad. I'm like, you're the one that told him to go south.
Right.
So a little bit, almost that's the part that felt contrived or manufactured to me. It wasn't so much that I disliked the idea of a more fundamentalist versus non-fundamentalist sect in the Fremen.
Hmm.
But I felt like Chani kind of got what she wanted and then got mad about it in a way that, I mean, that happens in life, I recognize. But,
Right.
and also a little bit the only thing I didn't like about it, it felt a little too like contemporary politics in some ways. I don't mean anything in particular, just sort of the whole idea of fundamentalism. And it just felt like that was inserted in the narrative in a way that I think you still could. I mean, it clearly already is a sect, cult like, whatever you want to call it. And you talk about charismatic leadership and all these things that become relevant in the story. But I don't know. A little bit felt a little forced to me. But again, the way it manifested on balance, I liked.
Yeah. I mean, it was a way of framing Paul fighting against his fate.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that if he went south, then he would not just endanger millions of people,
Hmm.
but also he would be, kind of be engulfed in the embrace of these militant fundamentalists in the South. So I thought that was fine. I mean, it
Yeah,
didn't have to. You didn't have to portray his struggle with his fate in that particular way, but it
right.
worked.
No,
The,
that's
the
fine.
part the part that still is sort of like a little hanging detail was the images of famine he kept seeing,
Right,
which didn't happen in the movie that in the
right.
course of the movie. So unless you really were dedicated to having another movie, it
Hmm.
just seems like an odd detail there that they
No, I
spend a lot of
agree.
time stressing.
I mean, clearly there's some things that are going to happen in the next film that are linked to
Hmm.
the visions. By the same token, there was this, and there was an addition, right? As I recall, the notion that he can see multiple futures and not just the
Right,
future. That,
right,
and so that makes some of those visions become a little more ambiguous,
right.
which I don't mind at all. But that was a change. So and then there are also there's some key deletions, right? So one deletion really is the whole Thurfer Howitt storyline really gets truncated substantially. They
Yes.
don't have the whole thing Jessica's a traitor and that rumor.
Hmm.
I was perfectly fine with all that stuff being left out. In fact,
Yeah,
that was one of
we
the things
didn't
I
need that.
didn't like that much in the first book. It seemed contrived and not necessary. And I really didn't enjoy, although it works fine in the book, but I didn't enjoy the fact that, Howitt basically becomes Harkonnen's mentat and all that jazz. But what about I mean, and also another thing I did not mention, didn't miss was Leto the Second.
Yes.
The lack of the baby because in the book it's almost like it happens off screen practically, right? And then the kid gets killed, and then we still have another Leto the Second later, which is confusing as hell, right? So it's
Mm,
not spoilers, but I didn't miss that. I didn't miss not seeing Count Fenrig. I didn't miss that.
no.
How about Aaliyah? What about the absence of Aaliyah? Did that bother you? Or is that, well, she was there, but she's not born. They've compressed the
Right.
timeline, and she's a talking fetus.
I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I thought it was appropriately creepy. I know what the
Yeah.
right word is
Yeah.
to have her there as a presence all the
Hmm.
time and having these conversations, and eventually Paul gets pulled into a conversation with her that's momentous.
Yeah.
And I think again, he being Villeneuve was thinking about another movie as a
Hmm.
possibility,
Yes.
to have somebody who is a rising star play the unborn baby.
Hmm.
I think was, kind of certainly a sign that he was hoping that he could make Dune Messiah.
Sure. No, I don't miss her presence beyond the presence. I mean, it's there enough
Right,
to fulfill the narrative need in my mind. I didn't need her to be there to knife Harkonnen in the film. That was fine.
right.
Any other additions or deletions that I've missed that you wanted to talk about?
I don't really have any. As I said, I think they did mostly just right. I think to go back to what you were saying about the concern about Jessica being a traitor. I think there's sometimes when people want to write a story in which intrigue plays a major role, that they create too many intrigues.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I saw the recent Knives Out movie, and there's just a sort of a level of labyrinthine machinations going on that stretches credulity a bit far. And sometimes I think it's good to pare back the hijinks and shenanigans for the sake of a movie.
I'm just envisioning a TV show called Labyrinthine Machinations.
I'd watch that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else about that adaptation that you wanted to comment on or critique?
I can't think of any. I mean, I'm really intrigued to see what he does with
Uh,
the next movie.
I do notice in your notes, since I kind of agree with you, so I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
The duel with Fade wasn't as good as I would have liked for
Oh
some, and I
yeah,
didn't even
yeah.
know why it is I wanted. It just didn't quite. But I think part of the problem actually, and this stretches across all three manifestations. In some ways, that duel, I understand why it happens. I'm not. I guess it kind of has to happen, but I don't like story beats where the hero has to put themselves in an unnecessary risk of their lives to prove some stupid point when they've already
Mm,
won.
right.
So maybe partially I just don't like the fight in general, even in the book in that sense. Although I know you kind of need to have this conflict.
Yeah.
It's the
There's
way it
also the question
manifests.
about like if Paul is stabbed
Hmm.
as thoroughly as he
Yes,
was, like how
yes,
does he
yes,
keep
yes.
fighting?
Just, just lucky, I guess.
I-
I had the same thought, right?
Yeah. I mean that's a conceit of modern movies, especially action movies, that people take bodily punishment at a level that would hospitalize them or at least paralyze them with pain.
Yes,
And they just keep on going like the Energizer Bunny.
which also happened in Blade Runner 2049. There's a
Yeah.
part where Kay is just, how can you be fighting, man? And somehow
Right.
you win. At least when he was a replicant, so that helps.
Yeah,
But
and I think
but
that
still.
also too that the scene really kind of showed the weakness of the actor playing Fade.
Hmm.
They just and again, I don't want to blame him completely, but he just was a degenerate. I'm using that word a lot in this episode, but that's the Harkonnens for you. And I had already doubted why anybody would give him ultimate power. You know, the,
Well, yes. Well, because he never emerged from a steam bath wearing metal underwear. And if he'd
I
done
know,
that, then
and
maybe
it
he
would have
would have
been
believed it.
that's because that's what every budding leader needs to do. There's a lot of people in contemporary
Stalin
politics.
Stalin did it.
I know,
Um,
I would pay good money to not see that from
no,
a
certain
lot of
persons, yes.
the contemporary generation of political leadership, not just in the United States. Um,
Viktor Orban, for example. Now, Putin might do it for you, man. He likes to go shirtless. So, there's always possibilities.
Now I'm thinking of like for the 2028 presidential election, like some political consultant saying, "All right, hear me out on this.
Yes,
What
exactly.
you really need is to come out of a shower, a steam bath in metal underwear. That's how you're going to connect with the electorate.
That's your vibe shift right there. Alrighty then.
And
Okay.
I think there may be at least one candidate I'm thinking of who would do it. Maybe tongue in cheek, but anyway,
I'm not even going to spend the energy figuring that one out.
I know
It'll
this is
come to me in a
taking
minute.
a turn, hasn't it?
Taking a turn, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So before we get to merch, any other miscellaneous thoughts about these films that you would like to make at this time?
Well, I kind of want to go back to the question about the adaptation.
Okay.
Uh, so, what is it in general we want from an adaptation?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were focused on this particular adaptation
Right.
and the previous adaptation, but in general, like when we hear that there's going to be an adaptation of some book or short story that we really like, or comic book
Right.
or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and we're in our heads imagining what it could be like, what would we be glad to see, what would be disappointed to see. I mean, what's on your mental list?
So I want that's a great question. So I think one, I want the casting to at least be true to the characters in a way. I don't necessarily mean matching whatever my mental picture was of these people,
Right,
but a way that embodies the way the characters feel to me in the narrative. Or if they somehow surprise me that it still is somehow true to the character, right? I mean, I don't, I made fun of Oscar Isaac's beard, but I never thought about Leto having that beard. It's great though, and it works for me. And I find his portrayal of the character to be compelling. I I want, and this is a really vague, unscientific statement, I think. I want to come out of the movie or the TV series having a feeling that makes me feel like it's what I read. By which I mean it doesn't have to be a perfect point, beat for beat adaptation.
right,
But do I feel like when I watch this movie, that it in some ways captures the essence of the book, right?
right,
And it's like I mean, I'll pick. I think that Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings is an excellent adaptation of those books. There's a whole lot that's left out of those books, a whole lot. But I don't feel cheated by it, and I'm perfectly happy to say there's things in the book that transcend a movie because again, by definition, even if you're going to make three very long movies, you still there's a lot of stuff in those books.
right.
But I don't want to come away going, "What the hell just happened to me?" or "That's not the book that I read." Or
Right.
I'm being very vague and again unscientific. But what about yourself? What is it you want of an adaptation?
Well, I think effectively the same thing. I wanted to have captured whatever the essence or core of what what we read. I wanted to be at least recognizable in terms of theme
Hmm.
or vibe or whatever. I don't mind it being deflected in an interesting
Right.
direction, the way that
Yeah.
Blade Runner
Right. That's a good example.
did. There are other adaptations that go way off track. I'm not a big fan of Total Recall. It's as a movie, it's
Right.
okay,
Right.
but I think that it in terms of vibe, like making it into an action movie,
Hmm.
yeah, you know. Or I liked speaking of Philip K. Dick adaptations, I really liked The Scanner Darkly. I thought that
Hmm.
was a good adaptation. I don't have in my mind the point by point comparison between the movie and the book, but it really felt like that particular Philip K. Dick novel, and it definitely felt like a Philip K. Dick adaptation that got his oeuvre, to use a
Hmm.
fancy schmancy word, exactly right.
Hmm.
But leaving things in or out, okay, Tom Bombadil wasn't in the Lord of
Right.
the Rings movies. I can go back and read the Lord of the
That's
Rings
right.
books. They're still there.
Right.
He's a very interesting character. Over the years, I've come to appreciate more of what he might be representing.
Hmm.
In the great, fantastic landscape of Middle Earth. But I did not need him to be in the movie.
Right. 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 No, I was trying to think, and I should have, since we talked about adaptations in the previous podcast, I should have thought about this a little more thoroughly. But I mean, it doesn't always have to be again. a perfect adaptation. So I'm thinking about, and in some ways it's a reinterpretation, but it's still an adaptation. Like I really liked Benedict Cumberbatch's Stephen Moffat Sherlock, right?
Yes, me too.
The
That's a
the
great example.
the
Yes.
essence of Sherlock Holmes is in that adaptation, right? But it's also different than other adaptations in a way that makes it unique. But I felt like the essence of the character and the essence of the world and the stories is present, even though it's a substantial deviation from the text, right?
Yes.
So I don't need it to be like a perfect adaptation. And then other things like I don't know, and I only watched it once, and it really kind of flitted out of my mind. But like Days of Future Past, and we talked about the comic book on the
Hmm.
podcast, is this is the absolutely awesome X-Men comics, a classic comic story.
Right.
The movie draws some of the same, but it doesn't feel like or really recreate in my mind that story. It just takes the title and some of the story beats.
Right.
And so, I want somehow to feel like I've experienced this thing that I enjoyed in a new way that has fidelity,
Yes.
but even if it's not, a perfect adaptation. I also don't want to be asking myself, what the heck is a weirding module and why is it raining at the end of this movie? I mean, stuff like that I just don't want, right?
Right. It doesn't fit in at all.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
I'm glad you brought up Sherlock because I'm a big Holmesophile.
Right.
I don't know if that's the exact proper term for somebody who likes the original books, and I've got a two.
Sherlockophilia.
Yeah, I've got a 2 volume set, on my bookshelf over here,
Hmm.
and I was entertained by Basil Rathbone when he
Hmm.
portrayed Sherlock Holmes, but there was always sort of like a little bit of a wink to the
Right,
camera,
right, right.
going on with that was off-putting. When I saw Jeremy Brett in the British TV adaptations that were
Hmm.
done in the 1980s, I said, "Oh my God, that's it! Somebody
Hmm.
finally did a great Sherlock. Brilliant, peculiar, flawed,
Right.
exactly right, exactly right. A real sort of Victorian eccentric
Hmm.
in oh so many ways. And I kind of thought it's going to be really hard for somebody to do a good job of playing Sherlock Holmes in the shadow of that portrayal. But I
Right.
really like Benedict Cumberbatch. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know about you. I mean, that was my introduction to him as an
It was to
actor.
me as
And
well. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And it's like, oh, this guy's great.
Exactly.
They had the Holmes Watson
Hmm.
relationship down pat. And anyway, it really outdid any expectations that I had, and I didn't care that it was set in the modern day. In
No, I
fact,
think
I
it
thought
worked
that
quite
was
well,
really
actually.
good that
Yeah.
they changed the nature of a lot of the NPCs in
Right.
the
Right.
stories. And the chief adversary, was also played really well, but differently than in the past.
Hmm.
All of that was great. I didn't need it to be exactly Sherlock Holmes. And the other point I wanted from the books. Or short stories. And the other thing I wanted to say was there are a lot of things that do not translate to the screen well.
Right.
And so you have to make choices
Yes, that's right.
about
That's
what
right.
to cut of those.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I keep picking on the Lynch movie. One of the things that was weird about the Lynch movie was that the occasional forays into total fidelity to the text
Right.
that didn't work. Like again, the internal monologue stuff. Because again, I think one of the
Mhm.
challenges of Dune is there's a lot of interiority in the book, right? And people are thinking
Right.
things. And you can't have the thought bubbles for crying out loud. You've got to have another way of doing this, or you've got to cut some of that out to make it
Right.
work. And so, that kind of thing being there, it's really weird, right? There is a degree to which you can be overly faithful, and that makes for a bad adaptation.
Right. My God, that was such a bad choice to have the voiceovers.
Yes, it was.
Because it was almost another manifestation of Lynch's anti-acting approach to his actors, right?
Mm,
Like you couldn't trust them. Well, I know this was forced on him, that it
right,
wasn't
right.
his
Yeah, yeah.
decision, it was the studio,
Still.
but still, his way of kind of like making people seem very stiff and artificial
Hmm.
meant you didn't get a lot of the visual cues about what was on a character's mind the way that more natural acting would give you, like facial
Right.
gestures, body movements, whatever. It just wasn't there.
Agreed. Agreed. So I either forget or jump the gun, but I think maybe I've got the balance right this week.
Okay,
Are we ready to talk about merch?
we're ready to talk about merch.
So, I mean, this is a brand new movie, so I doubt either one of us had any merch, but you can
Mm,
disabuse me of that notion if I'm wrong.
I had nothing. I had nothing.
I had nothing either.
I don't
Um,
buy merch the way they did too when yeah, sorry. I don't buy merch the way I used to when I was younger.
right. So, anything you want?
Well, you'll be absolutely not surprised to hear a flying ornithopter
Well,
would
of
be pretty
course.
darn cool.
Who wouldn't want one? A real one, even. You could
I
fly to the
know.
store. Yeah, I was out the other day at a bookstore and I saw there's actually a Lego Royal Ornithopter.
Yes,
That I would take that. Now it's $165, so I don't think I really want it that bad, but it's there. It exists.
I know.
Pretty
There's a
cool
cheaper
looking.
there's a cheaper non-Lego. What do you call that particular medium? Blocks or
Yeah, they're blocks.
okay, there are other companies that do it, Duplo and so forth. There's one of a sandworm with ornithopters flying around it.
Mm.
That would be another possibility.
I'm going to be a pedant and point out that Duplo was the toddler version of Lego.
Thank you
So
for that.
not Duplo, but it's all right. I was,
I would have wandered out of this house,
so, can you
said Duplo,
imagine?
and I would have been humiliated
Can you
in
imagine the
front of all my
emails?
loved ones. Yeah,
All the emails
all the
about
emails.
people correcting you because we get so many emails.
It's just like the one time we would get it from Dagmar Duplo, heir to the Duplo fortune.
Of course. Of course. All right then. And that brings us to a conclusion of Dune-A-Palooza and this week's episode of Ancient Geeks. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you later. While we're waiting for the carryall to pick us up before the sandworms arrive, we just wanted to thank you again for listening to this episode of Ancient Geeks. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe on the podcast app of your choice. And for direct feedback to us, drop us a line at someancientgeeks@gmail.com. You'll also find us opining on all things geek at our Substack blog at someancientgeek.substack.com, and we're roaming around places like Reddit, Facebook, and Blue Sky as well regularly. All content copyright 2025, Tom Grant and Stephen Taylor. Music by Reversed Image, and we can find on Pixabay. See you next time.
Dear Lord.